guys, welcome back to Damian. I'm back with a Mr. Nightmare video for you guys today. Happy Tuesday. This video is a little bit late, so I apologize for that. I'm recording this like 30 minutes after it should have already been uploaded. But it doesn't matter. Better late than never, right? 3 Disturbing True Basement Horror Stories Volume or Version 2. So this one ought to be interesting. Starting. And yeah, not really much to say, to be honest. Let's go. I don't like basements though. Our basement especially is like really creepy and full of crap.
Into the stories, I'd like to talk about today's sponsor.
Don't care.
From Red Factory percentage.
That's nice. That's nice. Thank you, Mr. Nightmare. Thank you. CK. Okay, let's see what CK has got for us today.
Let me give you some context so the story I'm about to tell you is more understandable. Our cat Cosmo has always slept in the basement. Every night since I was a little kid, our parents would scoop him up from wherever he was lounging and stick him in the basement. They detested all the cat hair he'd leave behind on their bed, which I guess was understandable.
I have a cat literally like lying right there on its back, like this, looking upward at the ceiling.
He was also an outdoor cat, so if one of us forgot to put him in the basement at night, he'd wake my parents up at 3 a.m. screaming to be let out. The basement's huge, the biggest room in our house, so I figured he liked having all that space. A little over 2 weeks ago, as I'm writing this, he started acting weird. There's a little landing at the top of the basement stairs just behind the door. That's where we'd usually put him. After a few minutes, he'd walk down the stairs and sleep on whatever piece of furniture he pleased. One night, I placed him delicately on the landing and gently shut the door, something I'd done a million times. As I was filling my water glass in the kitchen, though, I heard him meowing from behind the door. That was odd. He usually trotted down the stairs immediately. I finished filling my glass and walked over to the door, wondering if someone had maybe forgotten to fill his dish. I opened the door, and he darted out into the living room as if he were chasing something. I checked the dish, and it was completely full. Weird, I thought, turning to go find him. I put him back on the landing step, closed the door, and that was that. The next 2 nights were essentially the same. I'd put him on the landing, close the door, and start getting ready for bed. After a few minutes, I'd hear him repeatedly meowing. I'd go over to the door, and it was always the same thing. He'd just linger at the top of the stairs, refusing to go down. I worried that maybe he was just getting old, but that was a thought I didn't want to confront just yet. It killed me to do it, but I just ignored him, knowing he'd walk down the stairs eventually. The day after that, he refused to enter the house at all. Usually when he wanted to come in, he'd just hang out at our front
Such a cute cat, oh my god.
Steps or by the back door until one of us saw him through the glass and let him inside. At one point, I noticed him curled up on our doormat. I went to let him in, but he didn't move. I went out and petted him a little before going back inside. A few hours later, I walked by the door again and saw that he still hadn't moved. It was getting late, so I picked him up and carried him inside, which he wasn't too happy about. I knew he didn't want to go to sleep downstairs, so I let him sleep in my room that night. It wasn't a big deal, and he seemed a lot calmer that way. Of course, that solution didn't last. For the next few days, my dad kept complaining that someone was leaving the basement door open. He was mad because it was letting all the cool air escape downstairs. Air conditioning wasn't free, which was something he loved reminding us. I assumed it was my sister. She's always been the type to leave doors and drawers open without thinking. I didn't really pay it that much thought. I was just happy that Cosmo seemed to have mellowed out after...
That was someone's down there. At first I was like, wait a second, who is it? There's someone living in your basement. That's why the cat doesn't want to go there no more.
Being allowed to sleep in my room. One night, I woke up randomly in the middle of the night. In my groggy, half-awake state, I glanced over to the door and saw something weird. There was a silhouette standing in my bedroom doorway.
Oh.
It was just standing there, perfectly still. I could tell it was a person because I could see their outline in the faint glow of the lamp we leave on in the den. I figured it had to be my sister.
That's terrifying. Like just waking up thinking there's a figure, oh my god, bro, I literally crap myself.
So I called out to her, but the figure moved away without a word. I was too tired to figure out what she wanted, so I just went back to sleep.
Oh god.
A couple of days later, we discovered what had been keeping Cosmo away from the basement. A flea infestation. The whole place was crawling with them. It was disgusting. We assumed the fleas were the reason Cosmo had refused to go down there, which made
Where did they come from, though?
sense, but it was strange how they came out of nowhere. He'd We'd never had a flea problem before, and Cosmo always wore a flea collar. My dad yelled at my mom for not changing out his collar, even though she swore she had. My dad went all out, tearing through every corner of the basement to clean it thoroughly. We vacuumed the carpets, sprayed the entire room, and washed everything down with flea-killing solutions. He told us to stay out of the basement for the next few days so that any stragglers would die off without a host. It seemed like a good plan, and I figured that'd be the end of it. But then, a few nights later, another strange thing happened. I was lying in bed when I noticed light seeping in under my door, flickering on and off like someone was playing with the hallway switch.
Oh God.
I told myself it was probably just my dad, getting up to use the bathroom or something.
Doing it at that time.
The flickering continued, going on for longer than seemed normal. It was starting to freak me out, but I couldn't bring myself to check it out. I lay there, heart pounding, staring at the bottom of the door, hoping it would stop. Eventually, it did. I forced myself to fall asleep after that, but I've never felt more uneasy in my life. A few more days passed without incident. My dad said the basement was probably clear, which was great because I had been missing playing video games down there. After getting home from school, I went down to the basement. As soon as I got down the stairs, though, I noticed something was wrong. There were still fleas down there, a decent amount of them. It didn't make any sense. After all the cleaning, they should have been long gone. I went back upstairs to call my dad at work, but he just said to give it time. He insisted that any fleas left would die soon enough. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else going on, though. It wasn't normal for fleas to keep thriving like that after everything we'd done.
Yeah.
So the next day after school, I decided to investigate a bit further. I went down to the back of the basement and into the storage room where we kept some old boxes and tools, figuring maybe a rodent had gotten in and died somewhere. I opened the door and instantly knew I was right. The smell hit me almost immediately. This thick, rotten stench that clung to the air and made my eyes water. I followed the smell to the far end of the room, where there was an unfinished crawl space that connected to the plumbing for the whole house.
But well, I don't know why I'm thinking it's the cat. It better not be their cat.
It was pitch black back there, and the smell only got stronger as I stepped closer.
Unless it's like a dead body, but like, because obviously someone's living there. Obviously, like a homeless guy's living in your basement. That's obviously clear. But what's the stench though?
I didn't want to go in there. It was too dark anyway. I turned to grab a flashlight, and that's when I heard it. Breathing.
Yep.
It was faint at first, but steady, like someone was hiding in there. I froze. I felt a pit forming in my stomach. The breathing got louder, as if whoever or whatever it was coming closer. I backed away. Before I could react, I saw a figure lunge toward the end of the crawl space, moving fast. A hand reached out for me, but I jumped away before I could grab it.
What the fuck?
I didn't stay to get a better look. I ran upstairs as fast as I could, slammed the basement door shut, and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the house, but there was no sign of anyone. They found some empty chip bags and food wrappers stashed in the crawl space, but that was it. Whoever had been down there had escaped through the storm door at the back of the basement.
Asshole.
The officer said it was probably a homeless person who'd snuck in looking for shelter.
Obviously.
I couldn't help but wonder how long they'd been living there, and how much they'd seen.
Bro, they were literally in your room. You saw all the silhouette. That was them. Don't be stupid. It was my sister. No, it wasn't stupid. It was the homeless guy.
My parents were twice as shocked as I was. We've kept the basement door locked ever since, and Cosmo still won't go anywhere near that door.
Damn. A damn cook. You know what? Because the first show was about cats, I'm just gonna pick on my cat because I have an urge to want to pick on my cat now. Let's get you a bit comfortable. Ugh.
I don't remember every detail of this story since I was only around 7.
Halloween?
My parents have filled in some of the gaps over the years, and there are still bits and pieces that stick out in my memory. So here goes. I'm an only child. Yeah, it kind of sucked growing up by myself, but one of the pros meant that my parents were a lot more involved in my life. They'd really go out of their way to make sure I was thriving, and I look back appreciatively on that. Every year around Halloween, my parents would transform our basement into a haunted house. It wasn't anything fancy, just some old decorations, fake spiderwebs, strobe lights, and a lot of enthusiasm.
It's pretty
The
cool.
whole thing was for a good cause. You had to donate canned food to get in, and my parents would give everything we collected to the local food bank.
Okay, that's
They
great.
made flyers and
That's really good.
passed them around my school and a couple of other elementary schools nearby.
That's really
The
good.
vast majority of people who came were parents of kids in my school, but there were always a handful of parents and kids that we didn't know. My parents actually welcomed that. The more strangers there were, the more food they'd be able to collect, and the greater the likelihood that the haunted house would be a hit. We lived in a pretty big brick house in Haverton, Pennsylvania. A lot of the houses in our neighborhood were fully brick for historical reasons I won't get into. That also meant that most of them were really old too, since it was kind of frowned upon to do any remodeling. Our house was the kind of place that already had a bit of an eerie vibe to it, especially at night with its old creaky floors and dimly lit hallways. Every year, my cousins Jeff, Rick, Chaz, and Eric would come down to help my parents set up and manage the night. Usually, they'd dress up in scary costumes and hide around the basement to jump out and scare my friends. That year, they decided to go all out and wore matching anonymous masks. You know, those kind of creepy white masks with the blank expressions. The haunted house was a big hit that year, as usual. We had a good crowd going by early evening, but my
Okay.
parents told me later that there had been a strange man who showed up before things really got started. He wasn't with any kids, which was odd since the haunted house was mostly for families. He said his wife was planning to bring their daughter later on, but he wanted to drop off some food cans early. My parents didn't recognize him, but they figured it wasn't a big deal. They thanked him, took the cans, and stood there awkwardly before he got the hint and left. As the night went on and more people showed up, the basement got pretty chaotic. I remember trying to keep up with my friends, who were screaming and laughing as we ran through the decorations. At one point, one of my friends came up to me crying, saying someone in an anonymous mask had scared her. I tried to calm her down and told her it was just one of my cousins, but then she said something that made my stomach drop. She said the person had grabbed her wrist and tried to pull her into a closet.
Oh,
I didn't know what to make of it. I thought maybe she was just being dramatic, but the look on her face told me she was genuinely scared. I went and found my parents and told them what she said. They took it seriously and went down to the basement to check things out. They asked my cousins if they had seen anything strange. Jeff, Rick, and Chaz were all in their positions, and each one of them swore they hadn't done anything like that. But then my parents noticed something else. Eric wasn't at his post. Just then, everyone started to panic. Eric came running down the stairs. He said he'd taken a break to use the bathroom upstairs, and that when he came back, his anonymous mask was gone. He figured one of the other guys had taken it as a joke. That set off alarm bells for my parents, and they immediately shut down the haunted house. They made everyone leave and called the police, who came and searched the house, but, of course, nothing turned up. That night, I was still a little shaken up, but I figured it was all over. I fell asleep easily enough, but then I woke up to this tapping sound. It was soft, but noticeable, like someone was repeatedly knocking on my bedroom window. I was too scared to get up, so I just laid there, pulling the covers over my chin, hoping I could just fall asleep. After a few minutes, the knocking stopped, and I managed to drift back to sleep. But a few hours later, I was woken up again, this time by a scratching noise. It was more urgent than the knocking had been, like someone was clawing at the window frame. I was terrified, but something inside me snapped, and I threw the covers off and rushed to the window.
and then we're gonna see the person with the anonymous mask right in the fucking window, bro.
I yanked open the curtains, and my heart nearly stopped. There, staring back at me, was a person in an anonymous mask, only inches away from the glass. I screamed for my parents. They rushed into the room, and I pointed frantically at the window, but by the time they looked, the person was gone. We called the police once again, and they searched the yard and surrounding area, but they didn't find
Nothing.
anyone. There were no signs of forced entry, no footprints, nothing. The property was clear. A few months passed, and things settled down. The haunted house was just a memory by then, and my parents had started to ease up on their extra security measures. Then, one day, I came home from school to find an anonymous mask laying on my bed. It wasn't just any mask. It It looked exactly like the ones my cousins had worn that night.
Oh my
The
god.
thing that really freaked me out was the writing. Scrawled across the forehead in black Sharpie was my name. How the hell had that guy even known my name?
Oh my god,
Called the
bro.
police again, but there wasn't much they could do besides file a report. My parents added more security cameras and made sure all the doors and windows were locked tight every night. They really went over the top with the security, adding a full alarm system and putting sensors on every window, including the upstairs ones. After that, nothing else happened. At least not that we could prove. The next few months were fine, but I swore I kept hearing things outside my bedroom window. Tapping, scratching, you name it. It was probably nothing, but it got to the point where I was scared to sleep in my own bed. I've since grown up and moved out of that house, but sometimes I still wonder if there was more to the story behind what happened to me all those years ago.
That's definitely like an interesting one, to be honest. Like, I don't really know what to make of that one. Yeah, I don't really know what to make of that one, because that one was obviously kind of weird, because obviously like the anonymous mask, and then some random guy was there, stole the mask from the one cousin or from the one guy. Like, and then the mask months later ended up being in your bed with your name written on it, bro. That's fucked up. Like, you gotta move, bro, which he already did, but bro, you gotta move out of the house, everybody. Because I don't even know what to make of that, to be honest. I don't know if you guys have any like thoughts or theories, but
I recently got a job at a Mexican joint in a neighboring town. The area was a bit sketchy, but it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. I was also pretty desperate for money, so it's not like I really had a choice. Plus, I figured working nights wouldn't be so bad,
oh,
since
nice.
I'd have most of the day to myself. The restaurant itself was decent enough, but the manager, Carlos, was, well, shady. He always scheduled me for the worst hours, kept me late, and never seemed particularly concerned about following the rules. He was the type of guy who made you feel like you couldn't trust him. But like I said, I didn't have much of a choice. I needed the job. One night, while closing up, I started hearing these weird noises. I was mopping the tiled floor in the kitchen when I first heard it. As I was mopping, I picked up on these two muffled sounds that sounded like soft thuds and scraping. They were coming from below the floor. It was faint at first, but I knew I wasn't imagining it. The thudding and scraping would alternate, but I was positive that there were two distinct sounds I was hearing. I listened for a while, and the noises continued for a minute before stopping completely. It startled me, but I brushed it off as something small, maybe an animal outside or the pipes settling. But it kept happening. The noise would start up when the place got quiet, just as I was finishing up my cleaning. After a few nights of this, I told Carlos about it. He shrugged it off immediately and told me it was nothing and to stop worrying. He went as far as to say the restaurant didn't even have a basement. That's when I got a little suspicious. I knew he was lying because I had literally seen the window wells around the back of the building. I wanted to tell him that, but held my tongue. I figured I'd give it another day. Maybe the noises would stop on their own. Of course, the noises continued. I complained to him the next day and told him that the place must have a basement since there were literally windows below the ground. That's when he gave me this strange look and insisted that there was no basement. He told me that the previous owners of the building had sealed it years ago and no one can get in or out. Then he told me in a firm voice to just focus on my job and stop poking around. The way he said it, so dismissive and firm, gave me a bad feeling, but I didn't want to lose the job, so I dropped it. I figured maybe it was just some animal that had somehow gotten in. It was just weird that Carlos was so insisting on not checking it out or taking me seriously.
Right.
For the next few days, the noises persisted. Every night it was the same, those strange, low thuds and occasional scraping, like something or someone was moving down there. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, but I tried to ignore it. Then one night after closing up, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to take a look for myself. I walked around to the back of the building where the window wells were. I crouched down and tried to peer through one of the windows. It was pitch black inside, and I couldn't see anything, even with my phone flashlight. Just as I was about to give up, a light flickered on inside the basement, just for a second. Then it snapped off before I could see anything clearly. I froze, my heart racing, unsure of what I had just seen. I rushed back to my car, too freaked out to go back inside, but I didn't.
Just gonna back that up a little bit
I
because
couldn't see anything, even with my phone flashlight.
I heard it, but I just want to make sure I heard it.
Just as I was about to give up, a light flickered on inside the basement just for a second. Then it snapped off before I could see anything clearly. I froze, my heart racing, unsure of what I had just seen. I rushed back to my car, too freaked out to go back
Someone
inside,
lives down there.
but I didn't tell Carlos. Something about the whole
Listen, my camera's going to die in 2 minutes. Hold on a second, guys. Good thing I saw that. Don't want it to die mid video.
situation made me feel like it was better to keep quiet. I was not prepared for what was about to happen, though. The next time I closed, I couldn't resist the urge to go check out those windows again. I fully admit that my hands were shaking as I walked around the building. I knew nothing good was going to come from poking around. I crouched down to get a good look. This time, as I leaned in closer to get a better look, I saw it. Pressed up against the glass was a face. It was a man, but not just any man. He looked completely deranged. His hair was wild, and his face
Is there like a jail end right there?
was
Because he was like, no one can get in or out. And when he said it, once he said no one can get in or out, I was like, yep, something's down there.
filthy, like he hadn't bathed in weeks. His yellow eyes were wide, staring right at me through the glass. He bashed his head against the window and gave me this demented smile. I screamed and stumbled back, totally losing my shit. I ran for my car without looking back. My hands shook as I fumbled with my keys, but I managed to get in and speed off before anything else could happen. The next day, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I went straight to Carlos and told him everything. To my surprise, he didn't even try to deny it. Instead, he sat me down and actually told me the truth. He admitted that the person I had seen was actually his brother, who had been living in the basement. He said his brother was mentally ill, dangerous even.
Oh.
Carlos had been hiding him down there to keep him out of trouble. The basement had been sealed off to the public years ago, but Carlos had found a way to let his brother live down there, away from prying eyes. He urged me not to say anything, and said he'd appreciate it if I forgot this whole thing ever happened. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to quit right then and there, but I couldn't. I was so strapped for cash that the idea of looking for another job didn't feel like a real option. So I stuck around, convincing myself it would be fine as long as I stayed away from the basement.
I mean, yeah, like, it seems like he's ill, but like, in the sense, he's kind of keeping him in his own jail. Just to kind of keep him away from the world because he's mentally unstable or something, right? So I guess that's why he's keeping him down there, but it's like...
I tried to keep my head down and avoid Carlos, but the whole thing left me on edge. A few weeks later, something happened that made me regret staying. It was late, and I had just finished closing up. As I walked to my car, I noticed something or someone lurking in the tree line next to the parking lot. It was just a figure, but I knew in my gut it was a person. I had a feeling I knew who it was. My heart started racing, but I pretended not to notice. I kept walking, trying to stay calm, but then I heard footsteps behind me. I glanced over my shoulder, and there he was, the same man from the basement. He was hobbling strangely toward me, but clearly moving as quickly as he could.
How did he get out?
I scrambled for my keys and managed to unlock the door and throw myself inside just as he reached the door.
Holy fuck.
He slammed his face against the window, smearing it with dirt and sweat, and started pounding on the glass. I screamed, but I couldn't think straight. All I knew was I had to get out of there. I sped off as fast as I could. I'm not sure how I made it home that night without crashing. I've never been more scared in my entire life. I still thank God that he had some kind of limp, otherwise he would have definitely caught me. That was my last night working at the restaurant. I called the police from the safety of my apartment, but I never went back. I didn't want to know what happened next, whether they found the man or if Carlos got in trouble for what he'd done. I just couldn't be involved anymore. Even now, though, I can't shake the feeling that Carlos might come looking for me one day. I don't know if he'd go to great lengths to do something like that, but it's a thought that sits in the back of my head. I never found out what happened to the restaurant, Carlos, or his brother, and honestly, I don't think I want to. Maybe I'll take a drive by that restaurant sometime in the future, but for now, I want to stay as far away from that place and those people as possible.
So, I don't know. If it is his restaurant, I don't really see an issue with him just like living down there. Like, I don't see that being an issue. Like, if you're just like letting someone live down there, like it is your place, like it is someone you know, like you can, they don't, I don't think there's any like rules against that. Unless there is, and I'm just stupid. I have no idea. But I'm assuming that's not illegal. Like, I don't think what he did is illegal by any means. Like, unless he had to be in a hospital or something because he was like mentally unstable. When it said his brother locked him in the basement, like, I really have no idea. Like, I really don't know, bro. I really don't know. And I'm just kind of thinking, like, how did he get out? Like, you were literally saying that he was like locked in the basement, and he just gets out and then and then wreaks havoc on this poor guy or girl. Nick, I think Nick is his name. So Nick, a guy. I don't really understand. I don't really get it. Like, what the fuck just happened? But I'll read a few comments and then I'll leave this video to you guys and let me know what you guys think, because I don't know what to think about this. I feel bad for Coswell being down in that basement alone with that creep. Yeah, that's why he obviously didn't want to go down there, and the fleas. Sometimes I forget this is a real person and not just a shadow entity who likes to tell spooky stories in a top and hat and coat. I feel so bad for that cat. Imagine what the person must have done to him to make him feel scared and unsafe in a space he's been comfortable living in for years. The idea of someone hiding in a basement crawl space gives me chills. Yeah, that's honestly terrifying. Just to imagine just going to your basement, chilling, getting your Christmas decorations like I was the other day, and then you just see some random guy there. I'd be like, oh my god, bro. Oh. Bro casually sees a figure in his bedroom, a doorway that ran away when he called out, and just goes to sleep. Very smart, right? Like, who the fuck does that? Like, oh, it's my sister. I know it's my sister. It's not your sister, you dummy. It's the homeless guy. Stupid. Felt bad for the cat in the first story. My family had a black cat a while back, and I became his favorite person in the house since I was the only person who didn't give a damn about the hair and let him sleep in my room. Yeah, same. My cat sleeps in my room. There's hair everywhere. I don't care. It's fine. Eventually, he started sleeping in my bed every single night. Aw, that's so cute. I know. I remember my cat slept with me in my bed for one full night, like the one that I just showed you. I feel like it was like years ago now, but basically, I'm just like sleeping on my bed, like on my side, and I kind of like have her like beside me, and then I like, you know, just like my arm around her, kind of like you're cuddling like your partner, right? Kind of like arm around them, whatever. Kind of like holding them. So I was holding her, and then I remember going to bed just like that, and then I wake up, same thing, just like that, and I was like, she slept with me the whole night. That's so cute. And then she never done it since. So, thanks. She's right there. So, thanks, cat. I guess they're not your favorite no more. I guess they are older now, but like, wouldn't they be when cats are older? She's like 11, 12 now. When cats are older, don't they like kind of like want to be with you more? Unless that's the opposite. I don't know. I feel like as kittens, they're kind of like I don't know. I don't know much about cats apparently. So. Eventually starts in bed every single night. Cat companionship is pretty underrated. I made it easy to cozy. Okay. Ever since he passed almost a decade ago, I've generally had a much harder time getting to sleep at night. That's so sad, bro. I honestly dread the time that my cats are gonna go to, because I have two, and I think you've seen both of them, but they're both 11 now. We got them in 2013. It's 2024 now, so they're about 11 years old now. But some cats can live to like 18, 20, so I mean, I guess it really just depends. But they are pretty fat, so we're trying to get their weight down just to keep them healthier, to be around longer, because obviously if they're fat, then chances go up of like diseases and cancer and things like that. So in the second story, that the parents were actually intelligent and responsible. The minute their kid said something, they shut the whole thing down as they shut up. Exactly, those are good parents. Getting all these additional security, being all extra about it, fantastic, good job. They may have saved someone, you know, good job. Cosmo wasn't harmed. Yeah, like once I heard the thing about the rotten smell, I was like, please tell me the guy didn't like kill the cat or something. But why have a cat if you're gonna lock it in the basement, right? If you don't want to deal with the cat hair, don't get a cat. Or get a hairless cat or a breed that doesn't shed. From the start of this first story, I was so scared that the poor cat was gonna get killed, right? I'm glad the cat is still okay though. I really like what the parents did in the second story, really sweet. They should have already been keeping more watch of who was coming in. Yeah, exactly. One or two more comments. When the world gets too heavy to even acknowledge lately, these worlds give the present comfort that it's too hard to find elsewhere. Thank you for your work, Mr. Nightmare. One more. Two more. The last story reminded me of the movie Parasite. I don't know what that movie is, but I think I've heard of that. Where the maid's husband has been living in the basement instead with Carlos is deranged while they're living down there. That's crazy. Okay, one more. Man working in HVAC, our primary work spaces basements. Never had anything happen, but man, I've been in some creepy basements and crawl spaces where as soon as you enter, you just feel uneasy. Yeah, I don't do basements, bro. Obviously, we have a basement, but I don't like the basement. My cats usually sleep in the basement. They sleep up here. They sleep on basically every floor. I'll say 0, 1, 2. So we're on the second floor right now in my bedroom. when my cats go anywhere, they go in the basement, they go on the main floor, they go upstairs. My cat normally sleeps in my bed. Like, she still sleeps in my bed, just not with me. Like, remember how I told you I was sleeping with her around me, like, and I was like cuddling her basically? Only once in my entire life that I can remember that. Every other time, if I fall asleep that way, then she's gone when I wake up, or she's gone before I fall asleep. And usually that's the case even more now. I don't know if she's getting just more independent. You good? You still love me, right? I don't know. Like, she was looking at me, then she kind of looked down, kind of like, yeah, no, I don't love you. Okay, well, I guess there's my answer. Well, I still love you, okay? I'll see you guys in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a like, comment down below. Be sure to subscribe, turn on post notifications, and do all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in this video. Deuces. Peace.